Is Disney finally back? It certainly looks that way, at least for now, because Inside Out 2 had a phenomenal opening weekend at the box office. After years of really struggling with their films, having a lot of flops, a lot of questionable content, and then really questions about whether these studios are going to drive growth for Disney Plus, drive attendance to the theme parks. That's really where Disney makes most of its money. It's good to see that Disney has finally got a hit on its hands, and I think there may be some more coming. So that's what I'm going to dig into today, is exactly what the numbers look like. My name is Travis Hoium. Thanks for watching Asymmetric Investing. Please subscribe here on YouTube for all my content. And thanks to this video sponsor, The Motley Fool. If you go to fool.com/ASYM, they'll give you their top 10 stocks to buy right now. First of all, let's look at the market's reaction. And I just wanted to note that Disney stock was up relatively nicely, 1.6%, beating the S&P and the NASDAQ, partly because of the excitement around Inside Out 2. And the data that I look at in this industry is from Box Office Mojo. If you have not visited Box Office Mojo, this is really the best place to get all kinds of insights on what's going on in the box office. But you can see Inside Out 2 now estimating $154.2 million in revenue domestically, another $140 million internationally, for $294 million since opening last week. Technically, the opening date was Friday. I saw the movie Thursday, so it's going to be a 4-day opening weekend, basically. But let's just put this into context. If you go to the yearly numbers, now, the box office has actually been going up until the pandemic hit in 2020. One of the interesting things, though, was that attendance was actually going down. So ticket prices were going up. Kind of a strange dynamic in the movie industry, but has been pretty consistent for about a decade. There has been a recovery now. $8.9 billion in revenue in 2023. That's not nearly where we were at 11 to 12 billion before the pandemic, but getting a little bit closer. And I think content is moving towards getting back into the box office as well. So middle of June, total gross, $3 billion. That's not going to probably get you a lot of growth year over year. But if you look at the movies that have done well, you have Dune Part 2, Godzilla, Kung Fu Panda, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. That's another Disney film. And then Inside Out 2. So in just 3 or 4 days in the box office, this is already the 5th biggest grossing movie of the year. And this just shows how hot this movie is. By the end of this next week, it's very possible that Inside Out 2 is going to be number 1 for the year. Typically, the way that you would kind of ballpark these numbers is this first week, the opening weekend specifically, is going to be about a third of the revenue that you're going to expect from a movie. So just take this times 3. You get to about $450 to $500 million. That would easily make it the top grossing movie of the year. So why is there reason to be bullish on Disney overall in 2024? Well, we are through the Inside Out 2 opening. So you have, this is from the company's earnings release, fiscal second quarter. And you can see that Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes was just a few days after this came out. Inside Out 2 is now out. You have Deadpool and Wolverine. That could be a pretty big movie from Marvel. And then the other big one, I think this is probably going to be bigger than Inside Out 2, is Moana 2. So this may not be the biggest movies that Disney has ever had, but I think definitely coming off of the lows that we had from 2020 through 2023, this is going to be a pretty solid run for Disney. The other thing to keep in mind as investors is that the box office is not nearly as important as a lot of people think. This is a look at their revenue segments and the way that they report things. Linear networks is going to be cable networks. Direct to consumer is going to be driven by the streaming business, so Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN Plus, those kinds of things. They also have the sports business, which is reported separately, but content sales and licensing, CSLO, is actually what includes the box office, theatrical box office. And you can see that even in Q2 2023, that was just $2.3 billion worth of revenue, smaller than linear networks and significantly smaller than the streaming business. This year, not as many releases, but just $1.4 billion in revenue. Also, not particularly profitable. Typically, what happens in the movie business is you don't actually make a ton of money on the movie in the box office. You're going to make money on the back end through things like streaming, through those linear networks, through merchandising, and for Disney, really through the theme parks. That's where they're going to make a vast majority of their money. So this is not all that uncommon for the theatrical business to be relatively unprofitable, even when you have a really big hit. But the point of this being important for Disney is that they need to have this content machine moving and being a positive force for the company to get everything else working. And so that's why the numbers from Inside Out 2 are at least a little bit encouraging. Thanks to our friends at The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/ASYM for the top 10 stocks to buy right now. Now, the other big change that Disney has made is changes to the way that they're windowing their content. They're moving back closer to what we had with introducing movies in theaters, and then you go to a first window when it's available video on demand, where you actually have to pay to rent the video, and then eventually moving to linear streaming, something like that. So the early reporting is that Inside Out 2 could be available on streaming as early as late July. I think that's probably not going to be the case if it's successful in the box office, which it looks like it is, because Disney's going to want to keep it in the box office as long as possible. Then you move into a video on demand window where you could potentially have to pay for it, even on Disney Plus. We have seen that in the past with Disney, so it'll be interesting to see how they handle that one. And then it ends up on the traditional services like Disney Plus. And that's really where you're going to ultimately need to see this content work, because it is much more important for Disney to have customers paying that $10, $15 per month to access Disney Plus than it is for them to go to a theater once or twice a year, because the addressable market there is much, much bigger. 100 million people are paying for Disney Plus on a monthly basis. There's not 100 million people who are going to go see Inside Out 2 in theaters. So this has always been the challenging dynamic for Disney's business, is you need to have the movie studios working well, but they're not necessarily the biggest financial impact from just having a hit movie. But it looks like this one is at least moving Disney in the right direction. We'll see if that continues with the Marvel movies coming later this summer. Also, Moana 2 is going to be a really important one from that kid side of things. If you have two big hits coming out of Disney, one from Disney Studios and one from Pixar, that would be phenomenal momentum given kind of the weaker results that they've had over the past 3 or 4 years. So generally, I think this was a great sign for Disney. Seems like studios are at least moving in the right direction, making the kind of content that people want to go see with their families. I know our family spent a lot of money to go see this movie on opening day. Seems like a lot of other people did as well. Now the next step we'll see is to see if that translates to financial results starting in the box office, but then ultimately making its way to streaming and the theme parks. But what do you think about the results from Inside Out 2? Leave your comments in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe to Asymmetric Investing. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you here next time.